All right, we're rolling.
We're rolling.
Here we go.
Oh my goodness. Okay, well, hi.
Yo, what up?
I'm Nathan Ramos,
I'm Douglas Kim.
and this is our podcast. This is the first episode of our new podcast called Pod Duck Dong.
Pod Duck Dong
Yeah.
it is.
So if you don't know that reference, the reference is from Long Duck Dong, which actually I played that character twice in my life in New York City, getting my equity card. And it's kind of emblematic of, like Asian Americans in entertainment. And,
Right.
so that's kind of what this podcast is about a little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think over, Hollywood's history, that has been the only representation of Asian males for the longest time. And so, that's kind of like what we've been stereotyped as. And it's kind of now we're seeing kind of like this change, this revolutionary change.
Which is so exciting. But so we're going to kind of talk about that other stuff like that. But basically this podcast, I feel there's a lot of Asian Americans in the industry, in the entertainment industry, and just and kind of creators. And we are part of that journey. And so we just kind of wanted to bring listeners along with our journey
Right.
and kind of like how we got
even-
into
yeah.
it, what we're doing now, and how the industry itself is changing, because it's a really exciting time right now. I don't know. I guess we can talk about like how we met.
Sure.
Yeah.
We met at a Cape Writers, or not a Cape Writers event, just a Cape event. So Cape is a coalition for Asian Pacific entertainment, right? This was just kind of, I think they were doing a graduation event for their producers, and we just kind of like connected over. I don't know how did we meet?
Okay,
It's kind
here's
of
the here's the tea. Here's the tea. America, Asian America. No. So Doug had this show that he created out of sheer force of will called Just Doug. It's on Facebook Watch. Check it out. And like I saw it and I was like, oh, this is really at least like well done. Like it, just like it's not necessarily my experience, but like I saw this person that was like creating things out of sheer force of will, and some people were like, "Oh, he's a little strange. Like, maybe not hang out with him." And I was like, "Okay, but if anybody tells me like not to like meet somebody, then I'm always like, no. Let me like check that out."
It's like the forbidden fruit.
Exactly.
You just have to be
Yeah.
tasted.
I was like, "Let me check this fruit out," and so I like met him, and I was just like, "Oh, like we're in danger. Like we're in danger, America," and so. Honestly, like I was.
What would you say was the danger part in like initial 10 seconds?
It was just like that stereotypical thing of like being a Gaysian, like like I feel like straight men and a lot of like straight men of color like kind of get nervous around like Asians, like Asian gays, because like it's also because a lot of straight Asian men like they're from religious backgrounds,
Sure.
and so like they're grown up to kind of like hate people like me, and so
Do you think it's kind of like I hopefully don't turn gay or something? Or,
yeah, I think so.
Or maybe it's just kind of like,
I don't know.
do you think it's because like Asian men or like straight Asian men have that stereotype of like being like effeminate or gay? They're like, oh, I don't want to be like associated with a gay person, that kind of thing.
I think kind of both of those probably. I think that's a good point, Douglas. Yeah. I mean, but I met you, and I think like in this kind of current political climate, it's always this kind of like we were at this point, especially with the Me Too movement, which I completely understand, but it's just kind of like burn everything to the ground and then rebuild. But I think that's kind of what I was seeing a little bit with like your journey, was people just like there's a couple things that they don't like about this, so like and there's a couple of things about his personality that like are frustrating, so let's fucking like burn him at the stake. And I'm always like come from a place of like, okay, but like let's see if like I'm not saying like let's like like put this person on a pedestal, but like I want to see where this person's coming from, and then also like teach this person to like be a real person,
right? If there's anything redeemable.
Yeah. And because I love Jonathan and Queer Eye, and and I love like makeover shows, and so like I kind of like made it my little fun little project to take like a year and like connect to this person and see if I could like like rehabilitate them, and not even rehabilitate because he doesn't need rehabilitation, but it's like kind of like show empathy towards a person for a year and then like see what happens. And and like
now I dress better as a result. And, I can honestly say I'm getting a little bit more attention because of it. I was like, all right, this guy, what is this guy? So I'll just talk a little bit about like what I thought when I first met you. I saw someone who also was kind of like, hardworking, and like a year or two into moving to LA had like all these successes. And you were like, I saw these posts that you were making. I think the first thing when I wanted to connect with you was you said some posts in the beginning of the year. You were like, hey, all my Asians creators, let's get together. Let's make stuff. Like, I want to make stuff happen this year. Yeah. And I was like, oh, this is a guy in the community that's trying to make a difference. This is a guy who's like, despite, like making, it himself, he's also willing to give back to the community this early in his career. Like, I feel like I was a little frustrated because I feel like a lot of Asian creators, like they're just so focused on their own careers, and like rightfully so. Like, it's a hard industry.
Absolutely. And I think that's the thing that kind of where we felt like a bridge, because it is hard because this industry is, like it's a white male industry dominated.
Right.
Like it's that's what dominates the industry. And so, like in order to break in, it's a very difficult thing because it doesn't feel like there are allies, and it sometimes feels like there can only be one of us. And
right.
It sometimes feels very isolating. So, I mean, so I think that's just the way that we've learned to survive in this industry. So yeah, so I think we have like this kind of fun, like, usually I'll probably yell at Doug, or like he might say something problematic, but like, calm down. We're all here to learn. And like, I might be a little too like militant and like being mean, and you'll probably be like, oh, this guy's an asshole. But like, we're both just here to kind of like have a good time and really just kind of talk about what we're really excited about in the community, while also like talking about, I think that what's as an Asian community, sometimes we forget that like you can be excited about something, but also like, like make sure to like keep track of what's happening, keep track of all the balls in the
air, and also take a step back and be willing to criticize things that are coming out. Because I do feel like, while we should be celebrating Asian projects, there is a sense of like, we want to be able to, have some criticism so we can get better. We can all develop as a community together. But yeah.
So cool. I don't know. Some like, I guess like credential wise, like things. So I don't know. I guess maybe we don't even need to like go into that.
Yeah.
I think just,
I mean, they'll find out.
Those
are
our personalities. Okay,
we're bomb,
great.
all right? Just trust us.
Oh Lord. Okay. See, that's this is a Queer Eye learning moment. Don't say we're bomb. That word might be coming back like maybe in 6 months, but like at this moment, it's a no for me. So. Okay, so yeah, I think this like our first segment that we wanted to kind of like talk about is we want to just like talk about like what's in the headlines right now with Asian America, and some super exciting news this morning. It's kind of like a Korean theme because I'm half Korean, Doug is Korean, and so we're like, well, today why don't we do like a little Korean themed moment here? Yeah. And so K-Town was just announced in development at HBO.
Nice.
It's with Greta Lee and Jason Kim.
Right.
Produced by Annapurna TV.
Yeah.
And what is it? What is the show like kind of about?
I think it's about like kind of like this Asian American woman who comes back. She's like a Brentwood Barbie type or something, and she's apparently before she was embarrassed about her Korean culture, and now she's coming back to the family because I think she's part of like this powerful family in K-Town, and she's going back to her roots, sort of coming back, and kind of figuring out her identity and stuff like that. But I think it does look like it's gonna be in the vein of like one of those dark comedies that are on HBO. One of those gritty types of things. Just because like Jason Kim, he's been on development with Girls, with Barry, with all these HBO shows. Yeah. So I think it's gonna be along those lines.
And Greta Lee, if you are not on the Greta Lee train, like get into it. First of all, like any of her Amy Schumer sketches from Inside Amy Schumer, like every single one of the sketches, she steals the show. Like she's brilliant. Like look up Greta Lee. She's incredible.
Legit.
Yes, she's amazing. And Jason Kim, he wrote, I got on the Jason Kim train maybe like a year and a half ago. He had written this musical called K-Pop, which first of all, K-pop, A, yes, Lord. And then B, it was just this incredible kind of like Sleep No More-esque musical about the K-pop factory industry, and so it's like it follows a girl band, a boy band, and kind of a Ailey slash Beyonce. If you don't know who Ailey is, it's like the Beyonce of Korea, and so and one of those singers, and like they intertwine, their stories intersect, and yeah, I think he's super, super talented, and I think that's really exciting for like this kind of come up with the Korean community. So I don't know, we're doing like a good job.
So you think that the script is already developed and they're probably going to shoot it soon?
Yeah, I mean, like usually the way, so like if this is kind of like industry wise, if you don't know, like if someone says this is in development, it either means that like they went to HBO with a pitch, which means like they had like these are all the characters, this is what the log line is,
Right.
this is what the show would be about, and then HBO was like, yes, we want that, we'll develop that with you. Or they brought a script to HBO and they were like, here's a script about K-Town, like it would star me, I've done these things, and I have this guy attached that's done these things, and then so you kind of package something, and HBO would then be like, great, we'll develop the actual script and get it to where, you know, so it fits like our you know, like
and it's surprising because it is the first Asian American led show on HBO. I think like they've never had it. I mean, like, you know, there's a lot of firsts obviously with Asian Americans that are coming out in the past few years, but like they
has there never been an Asian American lead in an HBO show?
It's mostly been pretty. I mean, like, I mean it has Game of Thrones, so
yeah. There's no Asian on Game of Thrones.
I think there was one Asian background character.
Yes, background character in the Red.
Yeah. And I was just like, it almost looked out of place. I was like, what is happening here?
She got lost. She
was on the wrong set.
Yeah. Okay, wait. What's our next headline?
Scooter Braun.
Oh, wait, did you know about this?
I didn't. I kind of heard about it, but I think like what tipped me off a little bit was like he was like, oh, I'm gonna rent out this whole theater for Crazy Rich Asians. I was like, why is Scooter Braun?
Wait, Scooter Braun?
Yeah, this was in August. He said I think it was in New York. He was like, I'm buying out this theater. Come out, blah blah blah. And I was like, why is Scooter Braun so interested in Asians all of a sudden?
I mean, here's the thing. Douglas will sometimes come through with like the tidbits. I didn't know that tidbit. That's the juice there. That's the juice there. Wait, so to give them like what? So he's doing what?
He's producing a new show that's about K-pop. I think.
Yeah, he's doing a new feature film about.
Oh, it's a feature film.
Yeah, it's about an Asian American who enters a K-pop singing competition in Korea, and kind of like the rise and fall of this person.
Does Korea have those kinds of shows like
they do?
America's Got Talent and stuff like that?
It's like they basically have like their version of Korea basically runs on like variety shows.
Yeah.
And so like they literally have like, gosh, probably on the air right now, like probably like no joke, like 8 singing shows.
8
yeah.
singing shows.
I mean, like literally, so on Fox, okay, I guess this is another headline, but Fox just bought one of the Korean singing shows called The Masked Singer.
How do they even like differentiate themselves?
I think they all kind of live in the same ecosystem because they're all kind of based either on bolstering current K-pop stars' careers. So there's like a show called like Fantastic Duo where they have like these K-pop stars singing with just like regular everyday people, like a school teacher or a policeman, and then like but then they also have a show like the Produce 101 where they like make a girl group or a boy group out of like 100 trainees, because in Korea they have like this factory system where they basically like train you in school, and then when you graduate they kind of decide whether or not you're going to be in a group or not.
So that's more like a reality type show.
So but so I think it's basically about, I'm assuming it's about like kind of a riff on one of these shows. But yeah, I mean, I looked at the creative team and there's not even one Asian person.
Yikes.
And yes, I'm a little nervous.
Like no Korean at all?
There's no Korean. There's not even an Asian person.
So
period.
What kind of like intellectual property are they going to be using?
I don't know, but I believe that the writer, I mean, like her name looks like a white name, but I was told by a friend that she's like half Latinx, half white, and yeah, I mean, like I think there's I don't know, like I mean, like,
does it seem like a project that's gonna be like run over by like Korea boos and like?
I don't know. I'm a little nervous because I mean, like I think that you and I can both speak to this. There's so many really kind of very strange, not strange, but just like very kind of ephemeral like things about being Korean American, being Asian American versus being like growing up in Asia or growing up in Korea, and like I just wonder if those things are going to be lost if there's not.
Oh, they're definitely going to be lost.
Person,
like those nuances are just gonna like I think like what's happening is that like people are seeing that K-pop is this like huge enterprise now. It's like this multi-billion-dollar industry, and they kind of like and that money is not just in Asia. That money is coming from America as well, And so, Scooter and his boys probably were like, I want a piece of that,
Yeah. I mean, and this is actually an sticking point because there's a lot of shows right now that like they will be like, oh, let's do an Asian thing. It's like there's a show right now that I won't name, but like they're doing an all Asian season this year, and they have no Asians in the writers' room,
right?
And so they're now asking, what I've heard in the industry is like they're asking like Asians to consult on the show. And so it's like what that basically means is like you get paid less to do their job. And so I think we're all kind of getting fed up with that, which is like a good thing. But I mean, like it's that hard thing of like, people are frustrated. They talk about it on Facebook, right? But it's that catch-22 of like, we want these jobs. We want like, if this might be the way that we can break into the industry, but it's kind of a
process.
Yeah.
It's
a hurtful. It feels hurtful, honestly. Like in a way, it's just like, okay, like
it's like, hey, we see that Asian people in front of the camera are in. Let's get that money and piece of the pie, but let's still be the gatekeepers in terms of like the storytelling element of all of it.
And like, let's just bring someone in, and then they can just like tell us what we did wrong.
Right.
And then fix it for us.
Yeah, exactly. Like we're the Asian cleaners or something.
Yeah. So I'm a little like, like I hope this, I hope that trend changes.
Yeah.
But I guess like the last headline.
BTS.
Yeah.
That UNICEF speech.
Did you watch it?
I did see it.
Okay, what is this like? What is this guarded hesitancy, heteronormative, like whatever BS?
I guess, I don't know. I mean, like, I think it comes from when I was a kid. Maybe this was just like me and my own insecurities or whatever. When I was a kid.
Pause on your story. You're going to tell this story, but what happened was BTS, which is the number one group in the world right now.
Yeah. They are making money hand over fist.
Literally just beat Taylor Swift. Just beat her streaming record. Just beat Drake's streaming record. Just had 2 number 1 Billboard chart-topping albums in 3 months apart from each other, which is a record. Like, which is so
3 months. How are they pumping out that much material?
Talent. And so their lead singer RM. It's a 7-piece boy band, and they were invited to go speak at the UN, and because they actually give 10% of all their sales to UNICEF, because like they really are all about.
Was that like from the get-go?
From the get-go.
How did they even know that they were going to be like? So like
the story of BTS is they basically were like the runts of K-pop. Right. They didn't they didn't make it into like the top 3 trainee academies, basically. So the top 3 are SM, YG, and JYP.
Yeah.
And so they didn't make it into those 3, and so they signed with this independent label called Big Hit, and like they didn't even have money for like voice lessons or acting lessons. They have no money for anything except for like to rent studios to dance in, and so like their whole kind of like not shtick, but like they're kind of like their MO is like they constantly are like critiquing, like wealth inequality and like how the government treats its people and suicide, and
so they're more free with the message that they're allowed to even put out
because they're an independent group.
Interesting.
And they also the 3. I mean, like the 3 rappers in the group, they like really like came up like genuinely in the underground hip hop world. So they like really kind of like,
cut their teeth and
cut their teeth and so like they kind of decided early on, they're like, no, like we want to like if we're not giving back, then like if we're not giving back to like the fans and like doing something better with our music, then like what's the point?
Right.
So and so like their last like 3 albums were all kind of under this umbrella called like Love Yourself. And so it's like kind of like the 3 facets of like how do we like get to like love ourselves kind of thing. Nice. And so if you don't think that that's good, if you think that's not great, but then that's fine.
I think it's great. It's just I haven't followed K-pop in a while. It's been a while, but I think like so I followed K-pop a lot. I had I guess like an identity crisis when I was a teenager, and you know like there was this like Fabi guy that came to my church when I was a teenager, and he kind of like when we were on one of the our mission trips or whatever, he would like teach me all these K-pop songs and these like, you know, the dance to like We Are the Future by HOT and stuff like that. But I think like I always knew that I would never fit into like the K-pop beauty standards or like, so I kind of like, I think that was part of like my resistance to like even my own Koreanness a little bit. And I was like, well, I'm never gonna be like a cool Korean in like Korea.
What?
So like
this is sad.
So I think it was a little bit of that like emotional distance from like K-pop that I have like today or whatever. It's not that I'm like not proud of them or whatever that, you know, like as a Korean, but it's just kind of like I don't know.
But do you think that those beauty standards are just different? Like, 'cause I mean, like I don't think that like the K-pop beauty standards are just like, I think that like, you know, because I think a lot of like the major bone that a lot of like straight Asian men that I see like have against K-pop is like, oh, they're all feminine.
Right.
And, like I know like Alan Yang like tweeted like that, like, or he said on a podcast that he's just like, oh, like K-pop and like is kind of like hurting Asian men in America, right. You know, like love Alan Yang, but like I think it's this kind of thing of like does. Like,
yeah, there was a NBC reporter like news reporter just like, you know, a week ago who was like, oh, these Korean guys just like with their legs open. I guess that's like the thing, like in a sarcastic way, basically implying that they're effeminate and whatever.
Like, because I mean, like, I'm just like, are you donating 9 figures to UNICEF every year? Like, are you literally saving people's lives by like literally talking about the suicide hotline every single concert? Like, are you like, unless you're doing that, then like, what are we like? Why are we? And then like, what about it? Like, you know, it's just like,
it is this kind of like, I think like in recent times, Asian American men are kind of like negotiating their own masculinity and what it means to be masculine, and like especially in today's time when like. You know, even what masculinity is sort of being challenged. It is this confusing time of like, how do Asian American men reclaim their like humanness in a system that has kind of like, you know, claimed that they're not even men, or they're, you know, it's like sometimes people overreact and try to be like hyper masculine to be like, oh yo, look at me, bro, I'm like, do you even lift or whatever? Or some people like kind of like, you know, go the other way where they become like too like I don't know what the other way is actually off the top of my head.
Okay, no, like beat me up, Dad. Though, like that was good. Like that, it is that like it's like reclaiming being a human, you know?
Right.
And I think that that's like the key point of, you know, that the kind of frustration is that like if we were allowed to be human in American society, then it would be okay for them to, you know, be projecting this kind of like sometimes ambiguous energy, you know, like versus, you know, like because like they are becoming this like mainstream version of what Asian men are.
It's kind of like the microcosm of like the Long Duk Dong thing. Like if that was the only thing, then it'd be problematic. But like if we had the entire spectrum of representation, then it'd be like, oh, there's just like this fills in that box or this fills in that category, and we could all be happy about that.
That's great.
But about the speech though, like what about it did you kind of resonate with?
I mean, he literally at the end says, like, speak yourself, name yourself, love yourself. Like, and I think that, like, as Asian Americans, like, we just, like, need that, like, reinforcement of, like, we exist and, like, we're here. I went to the BTS concert and it was one of the most like in the song that I don't even like it's there's like the third song in the set, it was I'm Fine, and that's off their new album, and it's just kind of like being fine and okay with yourself. And like I like had a complete breakdown. Like I was like sobbing because it was the first time I ever saw Asian men being like true all-star rock stars on stage. And it was like the most bone-chilling moment to ever be like, this is the first time I've ever seen like us allowed to be like just everything we would ever want to be on a stage, like with fucking cool costumes and just like killing it. Like, and it was so overwhelming because I was like, I'm 31 and this is the first time I'm ever seeing an Asian male on stage doing this, you know, like it was life-changing.
Maybe it is that like separation that I feel like there is this distance that I personally have with maybe just Asian versus Asian American culture, and maybe I do need to kind of like, you know, kind of like immerse myself.
You need to speak
like,
yourself, name yourself, love yourself, Douglas.
So we're flying to Korea next week.
I mean, I'm in. Awesome. Well, I don't know. I felt good. That felt good talking about headlines. I feel like we kind of like got into a lot of good stuff. I mean, so speaking of, I guess, kind of speaking yourself, loving yourself, naming yourself, and kind of the subversion of Long Duck Dong and kind of where we're going in media. Today, I wanted to talk about, I had just seen A Simple Favor, and I just want to talk about Henry Golding because Henry Golding is a snack. Like, feed me, Dad. Like, honestly, just hold me down with one arm. You know, just like literally, Lord. The talent, the opulence, the charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent in that.
So I haven't actually seen it, but what would you say his performance was different from what we saw in Crazy Rich Asians? I guess, or
I mean, I think you know what it was. It was. Henry Golding's his rise has been so meteoric. It's been so quick and so fast, and I think that he's just like handling it in such good stride. Like, I mean, you know, like it was that kind of feeling of like, is this guy gonna be like a one-hit wonder?
Right.
Crazy Rich Asians. Is he going to be good when he's directed by someone else? And you know, like to me, like he like held his space like with Anna and Blake. Like I mean, like. Honestly, and Blake Lively gives the performance of her career. I've never like you can at me, please at me. Like, but Blake Lively to me has never.
What has she been in other than Gossip Girl recently?
That Age of Adeline movie.
I don't even know that movie.
She Sisterhood of Traveling Pants.
Okay, so we're not talking of like a huge like catalog of like acting.
No, but like everybody's always just like, I love Blake Lively, and I'm just like, no, you love like the idea of Blake Lively. Like she is like a stretched out Olsen twin, you know. She is just like a model, like and I mean, like I think that like they always try and make her like likable,
sure,
and I think that that's what was great about the movie was like it's like she plays as kind of like aloof, ice queen, like know-it-all but chill and like cool person, and I think that that's kind of
her essence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That seemed like what her essence was, and so she was finally playing something that felt close to her and that resonated with her, and so I think that's why she killed it. And Anna Kendrick, I feel like they kind of like subverted all those tropes of like, you know, like who she is as a person. Like she's quirky and cool, but also dorky, but also fun, but also erratic, but also
somehow college age to play in an a cappella group for
and
3 movies.
Yeah, and she's always depressed, but kind of making it through. And like I think they took all of those things and just like let her have fun with those things. It kind of like an Anne Hathaway in Ocean's 8.
So it's like a little bit like meta for both of them.
Absolutely.
Bit. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so Henry Golding, what kind of character does he play in there?
He plays this kind of like failed writer. Resonating. No. Like a writer that like kind of like shot to meteoric fame and then like is now stuck being a professor at a college, at like a small college that he doesn't really like. And so it's the mystery is kind of, there's like mysteries brewing between the 3 leads. And I mean, like he literally, because like Blake Lively pieces out after Act 1 and she's not in Act 2 of the movie at all. It's just Henry and Anna Kendrick, and like he kills it. Like he is like just charismatic and vulnerable and like just such a leading man and smart, and you know like and so I mean, like I don't know, I just like I've had to kind of grapple with like the whole like Crazy Rich Asians kind of, like
fallout.
Yeah, I guess like for definitely for the straight Asian community, like the fallout of like I guess I wouldn't even say fallout, but just like kind of like the thoughts and like and kind of like well-meaning and also like harsh critiques of like having Henry cast in Crazy Rich Asians, like but I think that like outside of that, I mean, like, and Paul Feig, I think Paul Feig, he did. I mean, there's 4 Asians in that movie.
Oh, in the Simple Favor.
Yeah, there's Henry Golding, and then his son, who has like a pretty big part, and then Aparna Nancherla, who I'm obsessed with. You should see her Netflix special and all of her Conan specials. She's hilarious.
What does she play?
She's one of like the moms that like there's like a 3 mommy brigade. There's like her, Andrew Rannells, and this other woman, and they're like the 3 like bitchy moms. Sure. Like that are friends with Anna Kendrick at school, and then there's also Patty Harrison has a cameo actually, and she's this I believe she's Hapa, and she's this incredible comedian. So like look her up too. She has this like very bizarre web series where she like kind of does like she plays with animals. She like checks out animals. It's kind of like it's like this, it's like Zaboomafoo, but it's like Brian Fellows, but like a surreal Brian Fellows from SNL. It's wild.
Wait, so the son in the movie, is he played by a full Asian, or
I don't know if he's full Asian or he's Hapa. But like it's like he's just the cutest little child ever, and it's just like and is also really great.
Do you know what the development cycle was for that? Like, how did they even know about Henry? Because this movie came out like right after Crazy Rich Asians, so he must have been like on it already, like for a while.
I feel like when Crazy Rich Asian was cast, I feel like what happened was Henry then got like the circuit of auditions for everything, and Paul Feig, like I love Paul Feig. I think he's such a champion for like like POC voices for women. And you got rats in your apartment? What's going on? I don't know what that was. And so, I mean, like, I thought it was great. But I think, so go on, like, tell the audience, I guess, like, how did people, I guess, from your point of view, how did people feel about Crazy Rich Asians?
So before, before the movie even came out, there was a lot of hoopla over the casting. I mean, like, Jamie Chung made kind of like a statement publicly about it. And even like I went to a talk with John Chu, and he was talking about it too. And he was like, like, I think it's fair. I think it's fair that these conversations are happening. Like, obviously, we made the movie. We can't like change it now, but like, for that role, it was this kind of like thing where, he did fit all of the necessary ingredients for that role. Like, he was, Asian. He grew up in Malaysia, like, and he identified as Asian. And, he had that London accent. He had all the charisma, and like you were saying, he had all the things that, like, that made that part. And so, like, in the creation of the movie, when I saw it, I was like, all right, I get like why it happened. But, there is this kind of like, I guess, this idea that, like, oh, this is kind of like the training wheels Asian for America. This is like the like, we're not going to go full Asian this first time because America's not ready for that. We're gonna get like the half white, half Asian snack, so to speak, so we can kind of like ease them, and it's kind of like like dipping your toes into the pool or something, kind of like. That's how we are, I guess I and some other people kind of like felt about it. It was just kind of like, okay, like, you can kind of like, it is kind of like a compromise where like, all right, like, hopefully this will be like the first one, and then, next will be a full Asian or whatever. But I don't know. I mean, like, it does kind of have to do with also like Eurocentric standards of like what beauty is and what, like, even in Asia itself, there is this kind of like white worshipping Eurocentric beauty standards. And it just kind of like is a little bit painful to kind of like always refer to that as like the standard and as to what we should aspire to. And, like, I don't know, like, I don't know what the solution is. Like, obviously, hopefully, like, we trend towards that direction where we can be ourselves and like just not have to like negotiate that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, like, if I'm speaking honestly, like sometimes I was like, like when he was saying, I identify as Asian, like, half Asian, and then other people were like, oh, half Asians need their representation too. I was kind of like, well, you got Saved by the Bell, you got Keanu Reeves, you got Darren Criss, you got all these guys who are like half Asian who are in the industry, and maybe they're not representing their Hapa stories, but they are kind of there, and it's just kind of like, when is the full Asian guy going to get a chance,
Yeah, I definitely struggle with this conversation because, I mean, when you look at, there was just like recent studies that came out that like, actually people that are Hapa, like they have more mental health issues, they have more anxiety, depression, they have more identity disorders than full Asians.
Yeah, I mean,
ironically,
full Asians here in America have identity disorders, so I can only imagine how
yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so it's like kind of like being like, oh, a physical representation of colonization, like that's kind of, it's a lot. And I think what's I lost my train of thought, but like I think
it was a difficult thing for you.
I'm definitely like grappling with this idea of like, like this kind of like, I don't think that he's a training wheels Asian. Like I think we like, because I don't know, am I Hapa? Like what does that word even mean? Because I'm half Filipino, half Korean, and like I never feel Filipino enough.
Well, 23andMe tells me that I'm half Korean and 27% Japanese and 18,
what?
or something like that. I'm like a mix of the East Asian
that's
triumvirate.
Well, I mean, that's probably from colonization,
right,
or takeover.
Yeah.
I mean, but I mean that's another conversation that we definitely should have.
Yeah.
But I mean, like I'm really embracing this kind of like moment that like people that of mixed heritage are having, that like I'm not half of anything. Like I am fully Filipino and fully Korean because like, it's fully part of my DNA. Like it's all mixed in. It's all mixed there. And so like for me, it's just like, if I only say like, oh, I'm only half of this, like I'm never going to be able to be a full human being.
Yeah.
And so like, when I also like watching A Simple Favor, like Paul Feig like made Henry's mom Asian and the dad was not even in the picture.
Oh, wow.
And so like, it's this very interesting, like when Henry is next to this whole white, like when he's next to two white women, he looks very Asian. Like, and like I don't know if they like darkened him up a little bit, but like I'm like, damn, Henry, like you look tan next to these. Like, maybe it's the way they have to light it, because they're like lighting, Anna Kendrick, who's like basically translucent, like like he looks like he fully looks like,
so more Asian than in Crazy Rich Asians.
Weirdly, because in Crazy Rich Asians he's next to a lot of
right.
So
it's like the contrast.
Yeah, it is that contrast. And I mean like, and it is interesting because I mean you look at Crazy Rich Asians, when you look at that, like like the people that are like desirable, like the like Sonoya is also Hapa. So I mean, like Remy is also Hapa. Like, it's like
I saw her in the Maniac show. She was pretty good with that.
I mean, like, but I mean, like, when are we? Like, we're at this strange place of like when I had friends, like when I was doing like New York theater stuff, where like they were so frustrated. Like one of my like good friends, it was just like, I'm too Asian to play white roles. I'm not Asian enough to be in any Asian
It is interesting because like the Hapas that do succeed in Hollywood, they tend to be more white passing. Like for example, Darren Criss, I didn't even know he was half Asian until.
Well, I think that's a whole other conversation because he didn't. He said in that article that he didn't even identify as Asian until last year, and so I think that that's like a whole other, like. Is it because there's a gatekeeping on our side? Is there a gatekeeping on the white side? Like, like what is that? Like,
I think it's because it's mostly been like no Asians in Hollywood. It was probably mostly gatekeeping on the white side of things.
Yeah.
Being like, oh, you're kind of like, you look white enough so you can play these roles. Yeah. Like Mark Paul Gosselaar on Saved by the Bell.
And even Dean Cain was Superman.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because I think that. Yeah,
or Kristen Kroik on.
Yeah. I mean, I feel bad because like when I was like growing up watching Glee, not growing up, I was an adult, but but like watching Glee, I kept like I would always post and it'd be like so happy that there are two Asians on this show.
Yeah.
And I would never include Darren Criss because I just didn't know.
I didn't know either. Yeah.
And so like. But like his mother's Filipino, and so like a lot of times like you take a lot of the cultural traits from your mother, and so like he probably did grow up in a pretty Filipino household and like but like wasn't able to like really give himself permission or like be given permission by what he was surrounded by to like like really like embraced that, unfortunately, and I kind of.
And that's a hard thing too, because I feel for Henry Golding too, like in terms of that whole debate. Like I've read like, you know, how he grew up in Malaysia, how he grew up like culturally Asian. I was like, okay, this is a guy who had all that upbringing. And so I mean, like there is a
go ahead. Please finish your thought.
There's an element of like, you know, well, does he know what it's like to be Asian American? And that is a different experience of like, you know, grow up Asian. But I think like he does legitimately, it's not like he's like this Hapa guy who was like taking all these like white passing roles where he was like essentially coded as white and now is like transitioning and taking all the Asian roles. Like that would be a different discussion to me.
Sure, but like, I think that's a different discussion. No, I think you're right. And I think we are able to have this conversation because he is undeniably talented. Yeah. If it was a kind of moment where
it was like a mediocre dude, I'd be like, fuck that noise.
But I think that's really important. Yeah. Like it's an important point to not pass up, because it's like if he was literally like a cipher for white America, then it would be a completely different conversation. Then we would be having a different conversation. But because he truly did fit the bill to me, right, and then also like is so talented, you know, like I think that's an important distinction. You know, it's like if Hapas are being used as a gateway for, you know, like a white audience versus is this person genuinely talented and the best, you know, person for this job. And I feel like when you looked at like the list of literally like 8 things that had to be checked off, you know, to understand Singaporean Malay culture, to speak these 3 languages, to have this accent, to understand this class stratification, like he really is like to me he was the person to fit the bill. But go ahead and add us, like let us know if, you know, you think we're wrong.
Full of shit.
Yeah. But yeah.
So for our last segment, I guess we're gonna do this thing called the Pod Duck Dong moment of the podcast.
Okay, can you say that with confidence?
Pod Duck Dong moment.
Oh my God.
The Pod Duck Dong moment.
We're also working on this podcast. I think Doug's doing a great job this episode. But
thank you.
Working on the confidence, you know, which I think he's gotten, you know, like giving us those good sound bites, which I'm very proud of. And I don't know what I'm doing, you know, like I probably sound like a mess too. My voice is really annoying. So if you've made it here, if you made it this far, congratulations. But yeah, this is the Pod Duck Dong moment where we just talk about like kind of a moment in our past where we've kind of come up against a tricky moment in the business.
Well.
Or something, or just racism.
Yeah, just racism in general. I mean, like, I think we were inspired by. So the name was inspired by "To All the Boys I've Loved Before," and her bringing that back. So you want to talk about that a little bit?
I mean, I think I guess this is your thing, but like, because like I don't really. Care. I don't know, like straight culture. As you all know, straight culture is truly wild, and like, I don't know, like, you know, like. Life is hard, but I mean, I think basically like I've played Long Duck Dong twice, not twice. I played Long Duck Dong twice in my life. One for a college short film, and then another time.
Wait! College short film? How does that work?
I have a very talented, wonderful friend who did
just a recreation of a scene.
And so like one of the recreation of the 16 Candles scene.
Oh, okay.
So I literally played Long Duck Dong.
Did you do the hanging
upside down and said what's happening, hot stuff. And that was the first time I played Long Duck Dong. But the second time I played Long Duck Dong was in a show called Awesome 80s Prom. It's like it was the longest running off-Broadway show in New York City. I had moved to New York and booked that role like a week within moving to New York. Yeah, and so like it's how I like got my equity card. And it's how I like, you know, like kind of started my career. And but basically it was an improv show where like I would play Long Duck Dong because I was from Ohio, I didn't really understand the implications of it. I didn't really know the I'd never seen the movie. I still have never seen the movie.
I haven't either. Yeah,
I've only seen the clips, like because I was doing research. But God, I forget. I like literally had a kamikaze like headband. You know, like it was like very bizarre. It was like and God, what was the name of the character? I don't remember, but I don't even remember the character that I played. But you know, like it was an improv show, so I would run around and it'd, like you'd be like, "Oh, me so horny, me want American style girlfriend," you know, and just like run around and improv and like Tony and Tina's wedding, and and it just like it just made me feel like that was the only thing I could be. And, you know, like, and it was really the only thing that you can be for when I, at the time.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And so,
when did you? When was this? Like 10.
God, that
10
was
years
in
ago?
20. So I played the film was probably 2006, and then I played this role in probably 2011.
And that was in New York.
Yeah, 2011 was in New York, and so that was like 7 years ago. Yeah.
Well, my first actual, even like hearing about Long Dong might have been like 2004. I think like I might have heard of them, but I think like once I watched Harold and Kumar, I was like, what is this 16 candles thing that they're always referring to? Because I think the directors actually put it in there to kind of like make fun of like 16 candles or whatever, make fun of that stereotype and kind of like kind of reverse it. But like after I was like aware of that, I was like, oh, okay. And then like when I saw that movie To All the Boys and I saw it coming back, I was like, this is a little gratuitous. Like, why? Like, what is the point here? Is just kind of like to be like, it's racism is okay if like.
Here's the thing. I'm as a comedy writer, like you can say anything you want as long as it's crafted well, and as long like you can joke about anything as long as it's crafted well, as long as you understand the audience, and as long as you're like making a statement that's as long as you're punching up.
Yeah.
If the joke was punching up, like, and you're making fun of like, you know, like all the John Hughes stereotypes, they literally like like, you know, like there's so much like you're allowed to like sexually assault women, like that's what you're teaching in these movies. So it's just like if you're saying like, oh, it's okay, then like you're then equating like you're then falling down this level. If you're punching down at Asian men in that moment, then you're also punching down at women in that moment, and you're also punching down, you know, at like, you know, all those moments. You're punching down at like nerds in that moment because it's like, okay, because it just wasn't well crafted. Yeah, you know, if there was a clapback of being like, okay, so like I'm allowed to like finger you like when you don't want me to, because that also happens in, you know, those movies. So like. For me, it's like,
in the John Hughes movies, those things happen?
Like he goes under the table and like grabs her private area. And then,
God, that's super
then,
problematic.
And then like literally like this girl gets too drunk, and so like he's like, here, you take it, you take her home, and just like and you can have sex with her. Like he literally gives this girl over and is just like sleep with her. And then like I mean I don't think he does, but I mean like it's just like. There's so many problematic things, and so when you like literally use the problematic things for a cheap joke versus a real well-crafted moment,
right?
Then that's to me when it's like lost. But it's also again it's just like okay like Jenny Han didn't even write this in her book, so it's
right.
So like
so how much of it is who's
and
pulling the levers
exactly? So who was the non-Asian person that was like, yeah, this is funny, like we're saying this about this, like you know what, like just be a better writer. Yeah. You know, just be a better writer, be a better producer, be a better executive.
And that's the thing with the movie itself. Like, I feel like a lot of people were angry at Jenny Han, but like, how much power does she have over the final cut or the direction or the writing? Like,
you don't know. And I mean, like, here's the thing, like. The movie, if I were a 15-year-old like Asian woman or Asian girl, or if I were even like even full Asian or Hapa, like watching that movie, like I would absolutely feel seen for the first time.
Sure.
And like Lana Condor is a star, and so like I think the movie like is an absolute net positive. And so like I don't think like again like if we like harp on one small thing that wasn't even in Jenny Han's original intent, then like we are then like cutting our own selves off at the knees. But I think deconstructing why that moment hurt is an important like moment, like it's because then because it ends up being a snowball effect, right? So I don't know. I guess that's our long that's our pod duck dong moment.
That's our pod duck dong moment of the day.
Okay.
Or the podcast of
Cool.
the week. I don't know.
I think that was good. We need to stop saying I don't know, and I think just like let's let it.
I can edit those out.
Yeah. Great.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, you can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, all in the same handle, PodDukDong. That's PODDUKDONG.
And if you want to get in touch with us, if you have any cool stories, you have suggestions of what we should talk about, hit us up via email at poddukdong@gmail.com. All right, talk soon.
Thanks. Bye.